Hello, welcome back to another week of the European Tour Picks and Bets Dutch Open Preview. Skylar, Hoke here with you. Tom Jacobs, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm fully recovered from Wentworth yesterday.
Got a little sun.
This,
I can see it in your face.
yeah, this is I don't get out much, so you get out into the sunshine, and it wasn't as bad as the Open Championship. I nearly
Good.
died at the Open Championship. I lived here, so there's plenty of trees around at Wentworth, so we're good. But yeah, you can definitely spot the English guy when they go to there.
Well, it was a heck of a Sunday we had. Billy Horschel obviously coming out on top with a spectacular round on Sunday. We saw Affy Barnrat really make some noise coming out so hot. I mean, Horschel is a good winner, a great golfer. Would have I preferred potentially seeing some of our guys maybe make a run at it? Would have been a really big win for Laurie Cantor's resume. Not to know his first one. Sean Crocker is just so close to breaking through with one, and you could see him do it on the biggest of stages. But what were your takes on the event?
So I decided to follow I think the mistake I make at golf is because we talk about it so much. I try and follow everyone around, try and get a little bit of snippets of everyone. Then you miss everything. You see one
Oh
shot
yeah,
of everyone and none of the action, right? So yesterday I was like, right, I'm going to follow. It was perfect. It was like Bernd Wiesberg was playing with Sean Crocker, and I was like, let's follow Bernd, see how he deals with the pressure of the Ryder Cup, and let's just see this guy Sean Crocker at ball strikers, for the life of him. But very early on, it looked to me like either Wiesberger was genuinely absolutely delighted with what was going on. He was smiling everywhere, or he was just trying to fake it. And I couldn't quite work out which one it was. He was picking people out of the crowd, laughing at them. At one point, I thought he was just laughing directly at my face. I had no idea what was going on. I turned to my fiance and said, like, is he looking at me? Or, it was just him and his caddy were just laughing at something. I think they were just trying to take their mind off of things. Sean Crocker, man, he wasn't even hitting bad putts. It was just rolling, and it was just burning so many edges. I was texting my dad. He's like, burnt so many edges. I thought, I'm gonna stop watching this guy. And every time I stopped watching him, he made birdie. Every time I went back, he barred, and then he bogeyed, and then everyone told me to get off the estate, and that was it. So, um, yeah, it was great. I think that Afid Barmrat, everything would look at 17 as costing him, but it was the Saturday really that derailed his chances.
yep.
But ultimately, he was a winner in my eyes. It's been 2 years since he finished inside the top 10 at the CJ Cup in 2019. He's been one of those guys who's been really badly affected by the pandemic in terms of travel and getting around. And yeah, I think he got his PJ Tour card, didn't he, at the Corn Ferry Tour finals, and
Yep.
then comes and nearly wins the European Tour. I think it's a really good return to form.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give us a shout out to, one of my good friends, former co-host coming in on here. Axis took down the
Oh,
555 on
he
DraftKings
likes
this
Billy
past
Horschel.
week. Yes, he had him 1% owned in the 555. Unbelievable. Took down
Wow,
20K
it's mad, isn't it?
yesterday. Yeah, so great pick on his end. Congratulations, Axis. We always are rooting for you. So that was
Do we
exciting.
know the rest of the lineup there? Do you
Yeah,
have it?
so I can pull it up here who I was rooting with him. So it was, Horschel's ownership. Affy Barnrat almost did cost him because somebody did play him in that contest. So, it was something where, his ownership of it, I'm going to pull it up as we go because he was rooting for Bezaden, who was on the betting card last week. I really thought, he had a Friday derail. We've been so good through like 36 holes, 18 holes. Jason's telling me I need to start betting first round leaders because, it's been 3 tournaments in a row. After day one, we were right there in the thick of things. So I thought potentially we were going to have some fun. We had Bezadenhout in there. I'm going to pull up the wrist here. Should have been more prepared, Tom.
I just threw this out there. I should have prepared this question for you, but it was just one of those things that for me, we love seeing guys in the community do it, especially when it's access to someone so close to yourself and someone
Oh,
that
yeah.
George has to do with the podcast as well. Because like we said, we spoke last week about how important it was for DraftKings to get so heavily involved in the European Tour. It was the first time we've had a European Tour event that was just solely the center stage, and I think that showed. Really thankful for the support we had last week. The views were incredible, a lot of comments in there as well. So we've had a really good week, and Axis winning that kind of money really just topped it up.
Yeah, his four others were Matthias Schwab, who we were fancy on from a DraftKings perspective.
Yep.
A very smooth T12 finish. Richard Bland, who, the difference of winning a contest and being not dead in the water, but a 5 of 6. Richard Bland was 3 under on his final 4 holes on Friday to make that cut on the number. So impressive. I mean, he got up and down from the rough 85 yards out on 18 on Friday to make that final birdie. I mean, he was playing for a Ryder Cup chance in the senses of, long shot, but kept him alive.
Where's this Andercurst? I mean, he's just won someone 20,000.
Fair. Yeah. Axis maybe owes Tim some bucks. And then Miko Kohonen was 3%. He finished T45. He had a really bad weekend. He was in the mix of it for a little bit. And then Kawamura, who was arguably the most underpriced golfer of the week, he was like 30%. So great team by Axis, won by a decent margin. So congrats to him. And on to the Dutch Open, which will be played at Bernadus Golf, which if you look at the European Tour site, we're going to have, you tweeted it this morning, but 18 par fours, all are 400 yards, totaling up for 7,200 yards on the nose this week. Tom, do we have accurate reports of how this course is actually going to be this week?
I have no further reports to as far as I know, that is exactly what we're playing. But no, seriously, I think that, the main thing for me that we've tried to predict what new courses are going to play like over the year, and I've kind of got it wrong a couple of times. Got it wrong the Italian Open. For me, Carl Phillips is a guy that's designed golf courses for a long time, the European Tour. And he was a designer of the Grove, which was 2016 British Masters, Dundonald for the 2017 Scottish Open. He remodeled the course that hosted this event in 2010 to 2012. 2014 and 2015 Nordea Masters and the Sicilian/Roccaforte Opens were designed by Carl Phillips as well. So that's kind of what I've done based on the fact, from reports, it kind of suggests it's a fairly open, sort of like linksy without being a true links, and the heather hasn't really developed because it's kind of year behind where it should be. So they're going to need some wind, right? If there's not any wind, this course is going to get torn apart, as we have seen over the past few months on the European Tour, which is fine. It just means that you just have to look for people with a hot putter and those iron play coming in.
Yeah, I think basically from what we see, a little bit wider in those fairways, the ability, if you want to overpower it, but also kind of brings everyone in play. If you look at other Dutch Opens, KLMs, you potentially have, Juice is the king of this event, and being his style, it's not overpower, it's fairway green, so if we see similar aspects to what we've seen in the past, pretty much it could be wide open. It's going to be hit the irons close and make your putts, which does lead us down a road of many golfers to discuss. However, these are the events. I loved Wentworth. Wentworth was awesome. But the betting of Wentworth and seeing somebody like Billy Horschel, take it home, deservingly so. He's one of the most talented golfers in the world. It's a different beast when you go up to an event and you see Thomas Pieters at 13-1, Brandon Grace at 14-1, Sam Horsfield at 18-1, leading off the 3 bets under 20-1 for the week. Horsfield had a heck of a 36 holes. He was somebody who we've talked about Fridays have been a struggle. And then we see him go out blazing on Friday. Sammy was in the mix. I thought the number we had on him, it was peaceful. It was just going to happen. Nothing on the weekend. Flat as can be. So I'm waiting to the mid 30s to make moves for me. Tom, is there anybody at the top of the board that you're intrigued by?
So I put out my newsletter. So Thomas Pieters' resurgence to form. You spoke about him earlier in the year when he just come back from that wrist injury. He's had the whole of April off this year. Really been kind of bitty of his play. I think the wrist has been bothering him. I think he's a guy that the return to form is probably being underrated slightly. I think he's going to be hugely motivated looking at the Ryder Cup in a couple of weeks and knowing that he was never even a thought in that team. Like Thomas Dietrich was and he wasn't. A guy that obviously is a compatriot. I think he's a worthy favourite this week. I just can't back a guy like Thomas Pieters 12-1. He's just as likely to crack an iron over his neck. So, Thomas Dietrich got to bounce back from last week. He disqualified after signing the wrong card in round 2, and he was right up there, and he had a chance to make the Ryder Cup team if he'd done it. So these guys at the top 4 or 5, you include Dean Burmeister as well. None of them really appealed to me strongly enough, and I actually am just grateful they're here to inflate the odds of others.
Yeah, that is very true. Even looking at the guys in the mid-30s, ones that we're going to be talking about, difficult pills to swallow when we're betting them, but enough there that it makes sense. I thought there could be a little bit juice if they would have Mark Dietrich as a miscut, even though he was playing very well through 36, but 22-1 on him is probably still pretty fair overall. DraftKings salaries as of now have not been released. Maybe they're just trying to see what type of price pool they will offer after the big monies last week. Hopefully we can maybe get 5K to first, but I think there's a lot to discuss above 30-1. I'm going to start with a darling from the statistical standpoint over the last 3 months. I mean, maybe longer. Shabaka Sharma has been exceptional. I mean, from an iron game, best in this field, in my opinion, from what we've seen. I mean, he delivers, incredible ball striking in the weakest or the strongest field we've seen yet. I mean, gaining almost, I think, over 9 strokes. Yeah, 2.36 per round last week. Something that doing that at Wentworth, has been something that not many other golfers can really do. And something that I think really speaks to Sharma is the way it's happened is he's been derailed by like 1 round out of almost his previous 20 rounds. It's literally sitting on 1 round. If you look at the European Masters, he goes 68, 68, 67, closed with a 76. We were on him that week when he was inside the top 10 going into Sunday. And then he shows up the next week at the Italian Open, opens with a 75, closes 66, 69, 66. And then last week, the ho-hum top 10 finish, 70, 69, 68, 66. I mean, you throw out 2 rounds right there. Of course it's golf. You can't just throw it out. And even if you looked at before, he was just, living in the 60s for forever. So it feels like Shabaka Sharma is deserving of the price. Is it easy to bet him when he was triple figures last week? Probably not, but there's no one that screams to me, all right, I'm scared of you at the top of the board. These guys are going to get priced here due to the form. I can't say no to the hot form of what we've run with Sharma, whether that means we get an each way or not. 33s, I'm okay taking it win only.
I think at the end of the day, you have to look at this event. We say this about a few events we've had. It's slightly above some of the Challenge Tour-esque events that we've spoken about in the past. But Shabaka Sharma, I think he was 7th last week in strokes gained approach, and I think it was over nearly 7 strokes gained in approach, and he was, over 11 strokes in tee to green. He was 3rd in there as well. So, like you say, from a statistical point of view, he just cannot be ignored. And why look at the event and go, right, he was 100-1 last week, and he's 33-1 this week, so I'm not going to bother. It's just pointless because he hasn't got to beat anybody like the guys that he was playing last week. There is no guys trying to go for Ryder Cup spots anymore. Thomas Pieters is a 12-1 favourite. Thomas Pieters isn't a 12-1 favourite ever. He's just not that type of guy. It's just they just don't want to take bets on him. Brandon Grace is okay. He's a great player. Kings Barnes is a course that they the design there, but again, not really interested. Sam Horsfield going to do it for 3 rounds. Thomas Dietrich, not a 21 golfer. So why just oppose him purely on price? Another guy that was a bit like that for me was Andrew Johnston. I spoke last week about how I thought he'd be invigorated by the crowds at PNW PGA. Exactly that. As soon as you hear the cries for beef, he's making eagles, he's making birdies. It's in a bunch. He even got upset at one point and then just bounced back with that eagle. So I think there's certain golfers you just kind of have to look at it and go, are they value? And you immediately scream no because they're 30-1 and they're 33-1, 28-1. And then you think, but who are they playing against? Once you get outside of 100-1, and as you get lower down those DraftKings salaries, you don't know yet, but it will get dicey. There's guys that we just don't need to talk about. Santiago Bentario is another guy, just in exceptional form. It has been no drop-off whatsoever. And you think about him at 30-1. So they're both. Sharma, I think, is one that we're both quite happy to go with. And Tario is one that was very close to me as well.
Yeah, with Tario, we'll talk about it later on. There's a good bit of informed Challenge Tour golfers and some that haven't had the same stretch of golf that he has had, but the last 4 weeks have been just as good, if not better. So the odds later with those guys, I think Juice Luton will, of course, be incredibly popular due to the course form or country form. Also, he's just solid overall. There's nothing really you pick apart about him outside of, when's the last time he won? 2018. 1 win since 2017. So it's been some time. He's just super steady overall. So I'm not going to fault anybody, but I would prefer to take Sharma over in that angle. Will Besseling, I thought made sense too. 35s. There's just not enough. What I like about Sharma is like the finishes are still like so much better than a lot of these other guys. Statistically, it's been maybe on par with Besseling. Besseling's been really good off the tee. It's decent ball striking numbers. Juice does that too. But Sharma gets there more than those other guys if you just look at pure finishes. And so does Marcel Siem. Marcel Siem at 40-1 is the other golfer, that I think both of us are very intrigued by. And again, and maybe it's just me reading into whether they finished inside the top 10 or not compared to other golfers. Of course, Siem did win, on the Challenge Tour, beat Hugo, who since the last time we talked Challenge Tour, Hugo is now a winner, of the Challenge Tour. But, you look at Marcel's, kind of recent form, hasn't missed a cut, in over 8 events. He has gone since he went into that win 5th, 1st, 15th, 56th, 21st, 12th, 7th, 34th at the Italian Open. I mean, that 15th was at the Open Championship. Just a lot more, juice, in my opinion, in those finishes. And what he does right, very good with the irons. Overall tee to green game can be there. If you're gonna have to take it low, of course, that putter has to heat up like it did at the Open Championship. But Marcel is somebody in this range that I think has just more in him versus other golfers right now.
He had that 11th place finish at the Grove as well, which is what I was just confirming there.
Oh, yeah.
Is something that really stuck out to me because this is a guy that we know once he gets on the heater, he can keep it rolling. He has been keeping it rolling since that Challenge Tour win in much bigger events than what he has been playing in. He was actually really unfortunate that he wasn't at Wentworth last week because that's a course that he absolutely loves. He always seems to pop up there. And I think, I think he put an Instagram post out about the fact he was dealing with a bit of a shoulder injury as well. And he's really glad to be back out of that. So if he had a bit of a shoulder problem over the last couple of weeks and he's finishing 34th and 7th, then you wonder what he's going to do here. I mean, that's not to say that was the only reason he didn't win, but and your point about Sharma, I really like a lot that he gets there a lot. I think that when Sharma's finishing tied 9th, tied 12th, tied 16th and stuff like that, that feels like the worst he can do. Like it feels like he's sleepwalking into those results because he's letting himself down in one round. He's having a bad putting week, whatever. That's the floor finishes at the moment based on his iron and driver game. And I just think eventually it's just going to click one week and he's just going to go and win. He's going to win by 2 or 3 shots.
Yep. 100% agree. And again, this is a different field. You look at the numbers the guys were talking about through. I mean, I get the 80s for some of my next picks. I know Brandon Stone was brought up by Ben Coley this week, who, potentially you think of that category. I mean, you see Daniel Van Tonder, who was a winner in this range. Jazz Janawatanan, of course, had not prolific, but a significant amount of victories, kind of on his resume. Golfers, George Coetzee in that same mold. I mean, Stone fits that because a Rolex winner, a lot to that. But you picked out a couple of golfers still chasing that kind of win. So I'm curious kind of your range or your thoughts in the mid-range here.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all was David Horsey, who has got those wins, but probably doesn't win as much as he should do. I mean, they're spread out over a number of years. But he's got a 12th place finish at that British Masters that we've been talking about 2016. He was 4th and 6th in this event and in the years that the designer had remodeled that course. Different course, but should have similar signs. The decent form at the moment, 2nd, 13th, 27th, 30th. The second he really should have won in Northern Ireland as well. Tends to just take advantage of these smaller events. I've spoken to him on the podcast before. He doesn't really read too much into that. It doesn't worry about too much what's going on around him. But I almost don't think he realises how he works his schedule out. And it's just that he will turn up. I mean, you look at his iron play and it's middling to average quite often. But when it comes into this event, he's probably near the top. He's a guy that when you look at it, I think he's got 3 or 4 wins on his resume. And these are guys, he's going up against guys that just haven't won. And I look at him and he's playing in the same sort of areas like Graham McDowell, who's basically semi-retired. I mean, let's be fair. I know he could be made the cut at Wentworth and stuff like that, but the deepness of this field is nothing. It's non-existent. There are guys that are coming through on Challenge Tour and they're worth looking out on, but once you get past something, once you get past this next guy and a couple of guys we could go into, I really don't see much value. I mean, the other guy I looked at was Joachim Lagergren, and he's a guy that many like to bet at loads of different events. Like he makes a pill at 200-1, and then people bet him at 33-1, and everywhere in between. Like he's not a guy that you just go, right, well, I'll wait until he gets to 100, 150, 200, then I'll back him. he's like, right, if he's in form, I'm going for it. He's won the Sicilian Open. He's got 3 top 4 finishes at Dunhill Links, including a 62 at Kings Barnes, which the course design was obviously designed there. 7th and 9th this event at different courses. He was 18th at the Grove at 2016 British Masters, and his form is just quietly sneaking into something decent. Tied 35th, tied 17th, tied 27th over the last 5 events. So, this again is a 27th place finish at the BMW PGA Championship Wentworth. What does that correlate to in this kind of field? And it's not as simple as that, because people don't just keep it going week on week, but there's enough ties to the course and the designer from Lagergren and previous form in this event to suggest he can keep it going for another week.
Yeah, very fair. And I think, the due diligence of looking into the victories from some of those guys potentially might be, different from the way I classified, some maybe even the lower tours, in which Kutsia, Van Tonder, and John Wantanan kind of ripped up. So it makes sense. I forget too that David Law snuck in that one win. But for me, I go through the Challenge Tour on both of my next selections. And I sat here deciphering, is it one? Is it the other? Do I go Matthias Schmid because he was the first round leader last week, did well, made the cut at the Open Championship, saw him pop a little bit, just before that in Germany. I ultimately just said, there's 2 golfers that clearly are in elite form when it comes to Challenge Tour finishes. And, both of them have racked up wins. Both of them are 80-1. And at the end of the day, I couldn't decipher enough between those 2 guys. So Alfredo Garcia Floridia, Tom, that was good.
That was
holy
amazing.
cow.
We're gonna have to start getting you is he Spanish? We're gonna have to get you a Spanish flag up now as well as the Italian flag.
That's pretty good. So if you look at recent form, kind of leading him in. So we had a 4th place last week at the Big Green Egg, 1st the week before, into that. So back-to-back weeks, I guess the form isn't, long going as some of the other guys, like we mentioned, Tario, but, hasn't missed a cut since July, had another 3rd place finish, 2 other top 15s there. So 80-1, that one to me, ultimately lining up next to Ricardo Gouvier. I don't know if that's as good. Gouvier.
It wasn't as good, but I did like it. I mean, Gouvier sounds like you're not sure. It's like Gouvier.
Yeah.
He is Portuguese, just to clarify. He's not Spanish like the other guy.
No. But, you look at his previous 5 events, 3rd place last week, or 2 weeks ago, as it was, cut in between there, 4th place, victory. So, 5 weeks of, 1 miscut in there, but 4 excellent weeks in the middle of that. We saw the run that made Daniel Gabbins with the victory. And we saw him also fall completely off the map already. After that, we saw Chase Hanna chase, a victory for us, what was hoped to be a victory. Sunday didn't go our way, but, in the mix, looking at places for him, there's just so much talent on these guys. They're not young bucks that are coming up here. They've been around the block for quite some time, almost kind of fight that, Marcel Siem kind of victory. Gouvet had 2 wins in 2015 was the last time kind of we've seen, elite performances out of him. So I'm worth taking those chances at both of those golfers. I don't prefer one to the other. It was either none or, 0, but how do you separate, that to me, I just like, okay, there's room on my card, we can bet them both. And, Alfredo does have a win. I think that was 2018. No, that would have been the Alps Tour. So still chasing kind of some European Tour love there, but enough with both of them. 80-1. I am definitely willing to risk both of that at the prices.
So my way of separation was just looking at what Gouvier has done on the European Tour when he's been at that stage. And like you mentioned, he'd won twice in 2015. He'd won in 2014 as well on Challenge Tour. He's got 2 wins in 2021. So we know what he can do at the Challenge Tour level. He should have had 3 wins. So he should have already got his European Tour card. He's going to get it. It's just a formality now. But his European Tour career before dropping down to the Challenge Tour has been pretty significant. He had a 3rd place finish at the Nedbank Golf Challenge, which we know is a pretty elite field at times for the European Tour. He was 5th in the Portugal Masters, obviously his home event. He was 9th in the British Masters. I think he's played well in Qatar as well. I think he might have been tied 6th there. He's just had some really, really solid bank of form on the European Tour, and Denmark as well, another top 10. there's just 13th for the Turkish Airlines Open, a big event, Rolex Series event to start with. He just has performed at that level. So for me, he's coming back to where he belongs. Whereas with Garcia, you don't quite know if he's at the same level. Admittedly, they're both in the same sort of form, and it is hard to split them now, and that's all that matters. But for me, I just like the bank of form that Cuvier's built up.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going off the pedigree, I can see that within there. For me, I'm also having one more selection under 100-1. Was there anyone else before we go to the last one here that you'd like to discuss?
I thought Paul Peterson, again, on the same lines of the guys that you were just talking about there, is a fair enough pick. Lucas Beauregard keeps improving and just keeps doing it in different parts of his game. So Chase Hannah, you've mentioned, I thought was worth a discussion at least, but he seems to be on the decline, right? And it's not just he's struggling on the European Tour; he's actually missing cuts on the Challenge Tour again. So that was a little bit of concern. I was interested to see you mention Matthias Schmid. I think if the DraftKings contest get off, I think he'll be a name that people will sort of come to because of the Open Championship and stuff like that. But I don't think he's in the same form as the guys that you've just been talking about. So I think he's almost easier to ignore. But yeah, for me, it's the guys that we got coming out that are probably ones to be more interested.
So the next one on that kind of note would for me be Niall Kearney. Niall Kearney hasn't got the same weekly opportunities, as some of the other golfers has, as his status has been a little bit ever changing, but you can look back to, the recent stretch of 3 events in a row, 29th finish, 35th finish. And then he was, I believe, 9th or 8th at the Hero Open. Yeah. Yep. And it's just really short spurts of good form. You look at Open 71 at the Hero Open, closes 69, 66, 66 on the weekend there. Rolled that into, opening at 68, 70, which saw him inside the top 10, through 36 holes the next week at the Kazoo. And then, that 7th place, or I guess the 29th place finish was driven by statistics we'd like to see. Irons were on fire. He had that, if you remember, it wasn't even all that long ago when he opened with, I think he opened with a 65 at the BMW International, went to 68 the next day, inside the top 4 through 3 rounds before that Sunday 71. Didn't go his way, but just, potentially because we haven't seen him since the Czech Masters, we're getting a little discount relative to what that form is. Is that form much different than maybe what Paul Peterson did with a pop-up here? Or, Richard Mansell did it with a pop-up there type of thing. I could easily have seen Kearney if that performance had been not last week, but 2 weeks ago in some of those events, we could have potentially seen this number maybe in the 60s. So Jason, your podcast host really likes Kearney as well overall from a talent end because, he's come out with some laser irons on days. So 90-1 feels good for somebody who can score quite a bit.
Yeah, you talk about scoring quite a bit. He shot 64 and a 61 in the Canary Islands, which is obviously set up as an easy course. Garrett Higgo went 66, 63, 64, 64. But there's a difference between shooting 64 and 61. And Kearney did it with just on a Sunday. Maybe not, definitely in contention, but just speaks to the volumes of the irons he can hit. And I think you made a really good point that he doesn't get the consistent starts because of his status. And that's massive, right? We've talked about you've got 2 different ends of the scale. We talked about Will Zalatoris, who was struggling with Monday qualifiers and not getting into status and course performance, couldn't build momentum. And it's the same sort of thing with Niall Kearney. So if you look at his results and you think they're pretty good, imagine what they could be like if he just knew where he was playing every week. It's not like he's dropping down to Challenge Tour, he's just not starting events. And maybe that's a little bit of his own schedule. Maybe he could put some Challenge Tour starts in there as well. But this is a guy that knows he's probably European Tour quality. And just wants to stay there and hopefully next year it's better for him.
Yep, 100%. So excited for him this week. Normally we'd go through kind of our 6K range and highlight a couple golfers here, but again, salaries still not released. I want you to discuss this final golfer that we're both betting this week that fortunately and unfortunately has seemed to be a popular pick. I thought we were finding some, diamonds in the rough with Lee Slattery, who has now appeared on multiple betting cards of guys that I respect who follow the European Tour. But Tom, you were in on him early. I just loved his progressive form, specifically with the irons. But talk to me a little bit about this course correlation and why you're in on Slattery.
So So I messaged you earlier, Sky, didn't I? And said I've got to the part of my research and my card where I am convinced that Lee Slattery is going to win. And you said, "Oh no, he's on my shortlist too." And I said, "Look, just go and bet him now because I imagine if we've found all this information, there's going to be a lot of other guys that probably find it as well." And unfortunately, they have in terms of price, but fortunately, they have in the terms of Ben Coley's picked him up, and that's a massive good sign for us. So Lee Slattery is 7th in the 2015 Nordea Masters. Obviously, course links there. 2016 British Masters, he was 12th. 2017 Scottish Open, he was in 9th. But he opened with, I can't remember if it was a 75 or 77, but he was in 120th place and still finished 9th. And he's been 11th and 13th in Sicily as well. His strokes gain approach numbers has gone 55th, 48th, 19th, 9th, 7th. Those have been in very decent fields as well. You know, last time out 13th at the European Masters in France-Tertiaire. So the finishes haven't been electric, 38th, 40th, 45th, but the 13th feels like a culmination of what's been going well for him. He was always a guy on the European Tour that you could back as a first round leader. You could back to contend and finish inside the top 10, but never really got the job done an awful lot. And there's nothing really to suggest that that's going to change as much now later on in life. But he did win the Madrid Masters in 2011. He did win the Russian Open in 2015. So he does win. He's played well at the Italian Open, Czech Masters. So he's got this kind of form. KLM, he's obviously finished inside the top 2 there. So he's got previous on this in this location as well. I think for me, one of the things is whether you believe he can win. And one of the things that I like that Ben said that sort of furthers our point is that, like, is he going to take inspiration from like a Richard Bland? Like, this is a guy that if he doesn't do something now, he's losing his card. And it's hard to get back. Like, the talent is getting better and better. He's in his mid-40s. You know, he's not the guy that can hit it 350 yards off the tee. So he needs to take advantage of these irons. He needs to get himself a win before the year is out. And I genuinely do think he can do this. It isn't just a prize play. It isn't just an each way. I think he generally can win this tournament.
Yeah, he's somebody who I think from a modeling and even statistical standpoint, leading into Q school days, remembering kind of what his upside has been. Yeah, I think there's a lot in Slattery. So to see, you know, joint people in on that long of a selection, I think it's a good thing. You know, the number might end up being 66 by the time he tees off on Thursday because a lot of selections, but you know, grabbing him as early as you can at hopefully triple digits with an each way. I love that.
Let's hope Tim picks him up and puts him on slot. That'd be great.
Hey, amen. Maybe we can ship 20K like Axis, you know? From this perspective, I think we're just going to run through kind of a list of golfers. I'm going to just ask you in or out, and I'm assuming they're going to be in the 6Ks, but want to make sure if you are a podcast junkie, if you're somebody who prefers to listen to the audio formats, you can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, the mix that's available on all your different podcast platforms. And we would love to see you rate, review, subscribe, smash that like button, give us support. You know, a lot of this, you know, comes from, you know, our time spent researching, enjoying this, but also, you know, to grow the better of the platform and keep pushing Pat's vision that we all love to be a part of. You know, we really appreciate that support. So Tom, I'm going to rip through some of our guys here, just in and out. I'm going to say a decent amount of them, I think. And I'm going to go in order of odds. So this is probably close to the cutoff. Marcus Heligkadil.
Out. And it's not because of your pronunciation.
Dude, come on. He was automatic. Yes. I'm absolutely playing him this week. I almost bet him because his form, and this is not one word at all, but his form isn't that bad. He won 4 weeks ago on the Challenge Tour, second place last week there. He is absolutely in play. I don't know how to pronounce your last name still, but Marcus, you are going to find your DraftKings lineups this week. Adrian Sadier.
In.
Yeah, I like that. There we go. Craig Howie.
Out.
Same. Gavin Green.
In.
I woke up and he was 100 over par on Thursday. So maybe Wentworth wasn't the spot, Tom. Maybe it wasn't the spot.
I think, did he start with a triple and then birdie? And I was like, this is the Gavin Green experience. Like, sign up for it. And then he is absolutely tearing it up on Friday. He makes 7 birdies. I think, he's got a chance to make the cut after such a horrendous start. Could have beaten his round one score by 12 strokes. He makes a 9 on the 18th hole. A 9!
Yep.
And that has absolutely destroyed his iron numbers. He's off the tee actually gained on the Friday, which is something that's not been in Gavin Green's wheelhouse of late. But yeah, I think slightly open layout, hot irons, get him in.
Yep, I agree with that there. Okay, we keep going through here. I guess it does get thin a little bit. Elvis Smiley.
In.
Nice. Toby Tree.
In.
You love Toby Tree. Podcast guest, Toby Tree.
Yeah. Probably slightly biased.
Martin Simonson.
Out.
Did you see who was leading the Challenge Tour last week after 36 holes? Our guy. Andre Leeser.
Yes. Pushcart Mafia.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Andre Leisure. And he hasn't quite done it on the European Tour yet, has he?
He's been so bad.
But this is why it pains me, because every time I look at him in Challenge Tour, he's just firing. And it's just like, dude, all you've got to do is do exactly the same thing. It's not harder. They're easy golf courses you're playing. You're not playing at Wentworth. You're playing at all the easy events. It's just fire irons. I mean, what is it? Has he got a caddy and he's not used to having a caddy? I just don't know.
Yeah. Rumor has it, Monday Q Info tweeted that bag might cost $2,000 to have. So, which seems the opposite of what it's protecting.
He probably sold it. That's pretty just to keep his car.
So, okay, we'll keep going here. Oh, it's tough down here, man. Barry Henson.
In.
I'm trying to pick guys that I think you would say yes to. Robin Skiat-Sigris.
Out.
Okay. Lars Van Mihel.
No, but he does sound like a cat when you say it.
Yeah. Nikolai von Dellinghausen.
You're just picking all the fancy names now, aren't you?
Yeah,
I'm out.
that's it. Okay.
What about Christopher Reiter?
He just bombs it. Does he do anything else in his game? I mean, probably not. These are the type of courses, though, if you're going to play, like I did at the Czech Masters. I played him because that course felt like it was just something you could bomb, and he didn't do well there. So I will pass.
Pedro Figueiredo.
I'm hoping for it.
This week.
Yeah, I'm probably passing.
I can't believe you haven't got like a former fisherman champion from the Dutch docks to post at 1,001. I mean, what are you doing?
I actually have two people coming, Tom.
I
didn't bet them, but
are you too sharp now because you're in the NFT space? You have to actually make logistical decisions and more thought out process. You can't just bet these 10,000 bombs.
No, fake news. I absolutely still. I just didn't have the courage to put him on the betting card because it hasn't gone well. So the last one before I talk about those two, actually three I have to talk about. Your guy Daniel Young.
Out.
He missed the cut on the Challenge Tour. If he would have made the cut in the Challenge Tour's last time out, I think I would have been in. Okay, so Dutch amateur time. So if we go through, we see the winner of this year's Dutch Open was, I had it up. Of course you did. Nope. It is Lars van der Veit. Lars van der Veit. He's in the field, got himself in. He is an incoming freshman. So he's, not even, I don't think 19 years old, 18 years old. I think he's going to University of Texas, El Paso or small school in Texas. He is going to this upcoming fall. So he won the Dutch Open or the amateur one, but the real talent, he's going to Texas Rio Grande Valley. Big difference. So Kiet Vanderweel at 500 to 1 is definitely the best of the Dutch amateurs. He's probably going to be like 6K flat. If we're lucky for it there. But if you look at his recent form, 24th last week on the Pro Golf Tour. He was 17th the week before on the Challenge Tour. So we're up in a little bit. Second place, he lost to the guy we just talked about at the Dutch Amateur by 2 strokes. He finished second there, and a couple other top fives just before that. So he is by far the best of the amateur bunch. I believe he actually has kind of a string of second place finishes in that Dutch Amateur Championship. But just definitely the biggest talent of that bunch. The second one would be Dario Antonis. He actually finished fourth last week on the Pro Golf Tour, was top 10 in the Dutch stroke play not that long ago. As well, there was a Monday add to the field. He has been brutal, to say the least, in the start to his career. But Angus Flanagan, who was a decent amateur, top 33 was his top ranking, who he missed all of his cuts on the Mackenzie Tour, sadly. But he has a sponsor exemption this week. So if I had picking the pick of the litter of them, if you're going to see one, maybe a top 20, if I decide to get a little wild on Wednesday, that would definitely be Kiet Vanderweel of that bunch. Tom, you mentioned the NFTs here. I'd be lying if I didn't want to quick plug the show that we did earlier on Mayo Media Network, NFTs Live, with my man Tyler D. We went 12 o'clock this afternoon. If you want to go back and watch the YouTube, it's live on Mayo Media Network. It'll be Mondays and Fridays live, 12 p.m. Eastern. A little bit of a mix. It's right now a little bit tamed towards those that have some experience in the NFT level, but we're going to be coming out with kind of a beginner series too. Some one-off kind of evergreen just for you, Tom, kind of walk you through a lot of the basics, why we're into this, what it is, how to get onboarded, do some of those while simultaneously having our live updates of the pulse of the market. But that wraps up Dutch Open for me, Tom. Anything else that you have this week?
I'd just like to mention that Kiet Vanderweel did play in this event in 2019 when he was about 8 years old, and he shot a 71 in the opening round. Did shit the bed and shoot 76 in round two.
He's probably nervous, man. He's probably top 10.
He was 10. Like 7 years old. Like his dad was probably just carrying him around. Like, he's here now. He's experienced at 12 years of age. You might as well put him in. And
I came across a website, Tom, that had prolific details on all European Tour amateurs, European golf rankings, I think it's called. Like this site, I was able to get way more detail than the Wagger. And I might just be reading it every night.
Way down the whole wormhole there, but no, seriously, just to follow on your point about the NFC show, because as a guy that I legitimately have absolutely zero knowledge of the NFT. Like I know what an NFT is, I just don't understand why they're valuable. So for me, you put up a picture of an NFT that you've paid $1,000 for, and I'm going yoink, I'll just copy and paste it and put it in my wallet. So
we got to come listen.
There is a reason to do it, and I was in there earlier, and some of the language, some of the stuff you need to get used to, but once you listen to the guys half an hour, you do certainly get the idea of what things are going on. These are sharp people. You see the level of detail that Sky puts into golf picks. He's going to go further that in NFC. So go and listen to Sky. I felt really unintelligent today. So the beginner ones will help me, but if you've got any sort of NFC experience, go listen to the live shows and look out for the beginner content if you're not.
I much appreciate that, Tom. It's going to be a fun journey in addition to what we're going to continue on, especially as we got Ryder Cup week next week. So we got some big...
Don't you dare leave me.
No, don't you worry. Don't you worry. But let's go back through your betting card one more time for the Dutch Open.
Yeah, so I think with you, Shubhankar Sharma at 30 or 33 to 1, I think is someone you just don't want to pass up. David Horsey, I think it's 40-45 to 1. Joachim Lagergren there at 70 to 1. And Lee Slattery, I don't know what price he is nowadays, but he's probably about 50 to 1 by the time this comes out. But he's 150 to 1 at 1 point. So they're my picks for the week.
Amen. Shubhankar Sharma, for me, 33s. Marcel Seam, 40. Alfredo Garcia Claridia, 80 to 1. Ricardo Gouvier, 80 to 1. Niall Kearney, 90s. And Lee Slattery, hopefully still triple digits we can find as we close up. Best of luck to everybody this week at the Dutch Open, and we'll see you for the Ryder Cup.